Well, it just so happened that while I was keeping my vigil in the hospital during those 16 days, the rabbi used to come and sit with me sometimes. On a Sunday morning, he said, I'm sorry I can't stay very long. I have to do a wedding in Chicago. I said, oh, that's right. Don't go in the room, because I knew the rabbi was queasy, and Buddy had had a tracheotomy the night before, so he never really gained consciousness. And then it dawned on me, I said, a wedding in Chicago? Who's getting married? The Waukegan community was so tight. The Jewish community was so tight. I didn't know of anybody who was getting married, whose children were getting married. And he said, oh, it's a couple from Zion. I knew there was an older couple who had a men's clothing store in Zion, Illinois, which was 7 miles north of Waukegan. And I thought, oh, I guess one of the old folks died. They're marrying to second marriage. It's an older couple. One of them must have died, and the other one is getting married again quietly, and the rabbi is accommodating them. I let it go. Three weeks after my husband died, I was in mourning, working the store. I always wore a uniform in the store. The rabbi's wife called and she said, we want you to come to dinner with us. I said, no, I'm not going out. I haven't fixed my hair. I haven't put on heels. I just want to stay home as much as I can with the kids. No, you should get out. It's not good for you, blah, 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 blah. She pressed me into acknowledging the invitation. I said, oh, all right. She said, the young Mr. Grodzin will come and pick you up at 7 o'clock. There was a very famous fish restaurant in Waukegan, Maython. You may have heard of it. It had a lot of press because Maython used to tell the weather by the fish, and always got the Chicago papers. 7 o'clock came. Young Mr. Grodzin comes to the door. Mrs. Amet, I'm here to pick you up. And we drove to the restaurant. Mr. Grodzin's young wife was in the car. They had just come back from their honeymoon, and that's why the rabbi was entertaining them, because he married them. And that's when I found out that the couple that the rabbi was marrying was this couple, not the parents. I never knew there were young men in that family. At dinner, I noticed his wife was very distant and sort of pouty. I thought, oh dear, either they had a fight or she doesn't care for the rabbi or something, because she's very difficult to engage in conversation. So finally I thought, well, I can't do anything about that. I tried and it didn't work. So I found that in trying to engage her, I forgot my own self-consciousness, though, which is a good lesson. You think everybody's going to look at you. I thought in Maythons, I knew so many of the people there. They're going to say, oh, that's the woman who lost her husband. He died on the drugstore. You never know that they're not looking at you. They're thinking about themselves. But I was self-conscious because it was the first time I was out in public. After dinner, the rabbi and his wife invited us back to their home for a little conversation and coffee and stuff. And that's when the rabbi's wife said, Sam has a men's and boys store in Zion. Why don't we take our sons, they had a son the same age as my son, going on 13, looking forward to bar mitzvah. Why don't we take them up to the store and Sam will fit them for all the camp stuff they need and measure them up for suits for the bar mitzvahs. All right, I was very passive, let her make all the decisions. And that's what we did. One evening we took the boys up and Sam was very, very solicitous with them, and he took them across to Howard Johnson and bought ice cream sundaes for them and showed them his nice big dog. And I said, just to make conversation, I said, oh, and how's your wife? He said, well, she's in Chicago visiting her relatives. All right. I was going to the synagogue every Friday night to say the prayers What would you do after death? And I noticed that young Mr. Grodson was there, whose name I found was Sam. And I guess he was under the rabbi's tutelage or something to comfort him. And I, again, oh, and how's your wife? He said, oh, she's in Chicago visiting relatives. I thought, uh-oh, that doesn't sound so good. So I left that alone. And several months after that, the rabbi was driving me to some event in Chicago that I was joining his family with. His wife said, oh, Rabbi, I'm so depressed because this was the first couple he married who was getting a divorce. I said, divorce? In Waukegan, who's getting divorced? Oh, she said, you know that young couple that we went out to dinner with? They just can't make a reconciliation. The rabbis tried. Oh, well, I said, I could have imagined that. She didn't look happy from the very beginning. And I didn't think about it anymore. We each had been invited to a big bar mitzvah party at a hotel in Waukegan because he knew the father through business, and I knew the family because they lived across the street of me in Waukegan. So I was invited to the bar mitzvah party, and I did not want to go. But my neighbor said, oh, no, we're going to drive you, and you should come, and you haven't been out, and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, all right, I have to go through that again. And I allowed myself to be persuaded. And I thought, I'm going to be very independent. I'm not going to let anybody check my coat for me. I'm not going to let them patronize me. I am going to order my own drink, and I'm going to be on my own. And I did. I went to the coat check, and then I went to the bar to order a drink. And I hear a voice behind me, Mrs. Zemet, can I carry your drink to the table for you? And I look around, and there's Sam. And I thought, oh, I bet he feels as awkward as I do. He was afraid people are going to ask him where his wife is, blah, blah, blah. I'll be nice to him. Sam was seated on the other side of the room. But somewhere between the courses of our meal, Sam sashayed across the dance floor to my table and asked me if I would dance. I thought, why not? This poor boy's lonesome. So we danced, and I will always remember that the number was Louis Armstrong's playing Hello, Dolly. A little while later, he comes back to the table, wants another dance, and we began chatting. And he told me how lonely it was, and that they knew from the honeymoon on it wasn't going to work, and what he did to keep busy, and he had to wait a year before he could sue for desertion because she didn't even see a lawyer. She just forgot the whole thing. I guess she wasn't very mature. So this was the days before, what do they call it, mutual something, no fault divorce. So he had to wait a year. And he asked if he could see me the next day. I said, oh, don't be silly. I said, he wanted to take me home. I said, if I'm seen walking out with you, I'll get 40 calls tomorrow saying, what were you doing with that young man from Zion? He said, well, why? I mean, why not? I said, Sam, we're not a couple. I'm a widow with 3 children. One is in high school. And you're just starting out in life. You have to find a nice girl that will marry you and start a family with you. You're in another world. He said, why? How old do you think I am? I thought, oh, this is dangerous. One should never guess those things. So he pulls out his wallet, and I see his ID, and also that he was in the Navy in World War II. Well, I thought, that doesn't sound so bad. We could be peers. Actually, there's 2 years difference between us. So I said, no, but I couldn't see him the next day. It just wouldn't work out. I had to take my little girl to a birthday party and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, he came over Monday night with a recording of Louis Armstrong's Hello, Dolly, and a cake for the children. And we started dating, and here we are, married 51 years. I never dreamed when I was widowed so young, still in my 30s, that I would have another life. I felt my life was over. Certainly my domestic life was over. And then when Sam and I got serious about making plans, I thought, well, maybe the book is not yet finished. Maybe there could be an epilogue to this book. Well, the epilogue is 3 times longer than the book itself. But it's been very good. Sam has been a wonderful surrogate father to my children. There's been a lot of affection, respect, and Sam was always smart enough to let me do the disciplining. So, and now Sam has grandchildren, and we've been a very good, intact family. What decided me about actually getting married again was my children wanted me to marry. They wanted me to marry Sam. They trusted him, they liked him. And my son said, who was 13, Mom, we could be a family again, like a real family. And that persuaded me that it would be a good decision, because no mother wants to go into a marriage where she thinks her children will be uncomfortable in any way or would cause any friction between her and her new husband. That wasn't the case. We were very fortunate.